Hi, I'm Shannon Torrance, and this is Magic is Real. Today's conversation is with Megan Alisa. Megan is an evidential psychic medium and a trance healer. Ahead of the interview, I'm going to show you a clip of Megan doing a live reading on Instagram. I chose this clip because I think it really highlights Megan's authenticity and the strength of her abilities. If you like this interview, I invite you to subscribe to the channel. If you want to see more videos like this, click on the bell notification. That'll keep you in the loop and let you know when new videos are up. Thank you so much, and here's Megan Alisa.
Savannah. Okay, so you would recognize this as somebody that would be your grandfather but raised you like a father. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I grew up with him.
Okay, that would make sense to me. I do really feel I need to say. Now, he's a funny character, this guy. He is somebody that I feel like I need to say would it make sense to you that sometimes he said sort of slightly inappropriate things for grandfather?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
So, okay. And I know he's somebody that I feel like he had fun with you. Does that make sense? Like there's a feeling of like being playful or being fun with you. But I also feel too that he's making me feel as though I could have been a little softer with you. Does that make sense? There's a little bit of a feeling of, I felt like he's making me feel as though I want to say, I told you to toughen up. Does that make sense? There's a feeling of toughen up because life is hard. And there's a feeling of, I even want to say this thing that my dad would say to me, which is like, life's a bitch and then you die. Does that make sense? Like there's this feeling of that from this man. And I know that he's, so that's where this apology is coming in. Okay. So I feel very, very strongly, and he's giving me a lot of chills, is that I need you to know how much I loved you. Like, and I love you still. I need you to know this because I don't know if I expressed it in the way that you could take it in right. Does that make sense? There's a feeling of I could have just been a little bit, I feel like I need to say a little more attentive or a little bit more caring of what your needs were. Because I feel as though in a way you were taking care of me in some sense. There's very much a feeling of like you being my shoulder, my person for me. And I feel as though there's a sense of him. He fulfilled that in some ways for you, he's saying. He definitely did. But I just feel like there's a sense of like he didn't always recognize some of the ways he spoke to you and some of how it affected you. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And I know also too, he's talking about race cars. I feel like this is a need to talk about race cars. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And it feels like I need to talk about watching this. So like, I feel like this is all on the TV, or I feel like I need to talk about this is like, I just feel like there's this TV sort of on the background, there are these race cars going around. Does that make sense? And I feel
at every family gathering, there's always NASCAR.
yeah, because I feel like this is, and would it make sense to you also that in part of his life he was very dedicated to this sort of stuff? I feel like I need to talk about drag racing, or I feel like I need to talk about working on cars and doing that in my earlier life.
Him and his brother actually used to build drag cars.
Okay. So I know that this is definitely somebody that I can relate to because of my own family. So this is what he's very much somebody that okay. And it would and would it make sense to you that there would sometimes be male magazines lying around?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Because that's just who he was. That is who he was. And I know that he's very much I can hear him laughing, and I just know that he really, really wants to just say, I need to call you kid. There's something about I need to call you kid. And I feel as though I need to say something about I want to cheer you up. And I need to say he wasn't good for you anyway. Does that make sense to you? I need to say there's something about just breaking up. And I need to talk about him having a high standard. It's so funny because he could be how he was, but everyone else needed to be in this high standard for him. So he's very much, and he's very protective of you, like very, very much. There is very much this father quality about him. Would it make sense to you that your grandmother would have passed before him?
She's still alive.
She's still here. Does it make sense to you that I need to say that there's something about
his previous wife, my actual grandmother,
your
is
actual
passed.
grandmother did pass.
She's passed. Yeah, so that would make sense. I'm sorry.
Okay. It's okay. I just know I need to talk about the there's something about mowing the lawn that he just brought up. Do you know anything about that? That like he's making me feel as there's something about mowing the lawn like it's not getting done, or is there something about this? And I feel as I need to like kick someone in the pants. Does that make sense to kind of get them to stop being lazy?
I live in his old house, and I was just complaining about the lawn care guy yesterday to my grandmother.
Okay. So this is just him basically trying to say, I'm paying attention to what you're talking about.
Hi, and welcome to Magic is Real. I'm Shannon Torrance, and today I am interviewing Megan Alisa, and my cat is trying to join as well. Megan is an evidential psychic medium who I came across because I follow a lot of psychic mediums on Instagram and join in on some spiritual events that happen. And she just kept popping up for me. And I watched her read because she does some live Instagram readings here and there. And I was really impressed with her abilities and also just her personality. So wanted to introduce her to you all and talk to her about all things spiritual. So welcome, Megan. How are you today?
Thank you so much, Shannon. I'm really happy to be here. And, spiritual topics are my favorite thing to talk about. So this fits perfectly for me.
Fantastic. Well, I always have so many questions. I'm kind of curious in that way. And so my first question is, I want to know about you. I want to know whatever you're comfortable sharing about, like where you come from and when you discovered that you had these abilities and basically your evolution, however you want to tell that story.
Sure. Okay. Well, I come from Southern California. I've grown up here. I'm still here. I come from a background of not having any sort of faith. Essentially, I didn't grow up with any sort of religion. I didn't really grow up knowing anything about God or the afterlife or anything like that. But yet somehow I felt inherently that I knew that we lived on. So like I always have felt that. And I did go through a period of my life, searching for things and searching for sort of that connection that I was longing for. But my whole life, really, I've had, a lot of different psychic awarenesses happen to me. So I've had a lot of not weird, I guess, but just psychic things that happened where I was, saved from certain things. There's one example I can give where I had just gotten married and moved in with my husband, and we had an apartment, and I was burning a candle and the wick was too long. I didn't trim it, and had a lot of smoke. And I thought, that's probably not good. I'm going to blow it out, right? Like normal person, I'm just going to blow this out. So I blew it out, not thinking that anything would come of that. I just thought, okay, it's great. Now it's out. I left the room. So, but like, I don't know how long after, if it was like a minute after or how long it was, but all of a sudden I felt this incredibly strong feeling of go back in there. So like these things they were just sort of move me, you know what I mean? Like this feeling of, I don't know where this is coming from, but I need to do this. These sorts of things would happen to me. And I went back in and the room had caught on fire because when I blew it out, it let a spark out onto the carpet. And there was a poster. So there was no smoke that was coming. There was no knowing that was happening. It was they moved me into this room. And then after I started beating it with a trash can that was there, then the smoke detector went off. So it's like these sorts of things that I feel the spirit world has really always been there for me to guide me and work with me. There's been a lot of like precognitive knowing and things like that have happened. And whenever I would tell my family about it, my mom would always say it was a coincidence. Mm-hmm. And I knew it wasn't. Like I just knew there was something more. And then as far as like the mediumistic stuff, I've been told, and I don't remember, but I've been told by my aunt and my grandmother that I used to talk about my great-grandmother who had passed before I was born. And I used to tell them things about her. And I used to say that, I was talking to her and these sorts of things. So I don't have a memory of it, but that's what they have told me. But I didn't discover that I was a medium until I was, I think, 33. And I was going through like a spiritual reawakening process, essentially. And this was after, my dad had died, my mother-in-law died, my grandmother died. And I was just, I don't know, I was like searching again or something. I was searching again. So I had gone to a reader at a local metaphysical store that I kept feeling this feeling before this happened, like I need to go there. But it wasn't time yet. Like there wasn't this push, you know, that you sometimes get from the spirit world. So when this happened, I did go, and she said, I think you're a medium, and here's a flyer for, you know, this person's circle. I think you should go and see how that goes for you. And I'm like, okay, I guess, you know what I mean? And so I went, and that was with medium Michael Mayo, who ended up being like my mentor essentially as this process unfolded, and also a very close friend of mine. So it was very interesting that first night that I went to this. It's like my whole life changed. You know, we sat in the power, which I'm assuming you're familiar with, sitting in the power and all that. So we sat in the power, and as I sat in the power, it was like some explosion happened in my body. It was felt like this energy just went whoosh and like all around me. And I was like, that is crazy. I was just felt like so strong. And it was interesting because after we all sat, and there was like a group in the circle of like maybe 20, which is sort of a bigger class for the normal that I ended up going to. I remember Michael saying, what was going on over here? And he was like pointing at me. And this was for like, he knew me at all or anything like that. He's like, what was going on over here? Because I felt drawn this direction. I was like, I don't know. I had like all this energy. It was just crazy. But so that happened. And then he had a demonstration. So he didn't do the demonstration. He was having students come up to demonstrate mediumship to kind of just show people how that works in the class. So somebody went up, and my mother-in-law came through. And so that was really cool. My mother-in-law came through that night. And then after, he said, does anyone else want to demonstrate? Does anyone else want to come up? And all of a sudden I found my hand literally shooting up, like without any thought. It was just like that. And he's like, well, okay, I guess, I don't usually have brand new students come up to do this, for sure. Let's just give it a try and see how it goes. I'm like, okay. So I got up in front of like this group of students that I didn't know. And he walked me through the process of basically just connecting. And I could feel this feeling of this man or this energy coming into my aura, essentially coming around me. And I could feel and know that it was a man. And he was showing me things in my mind, and I was able to connect him to the person he was there for. And like that night, I was like, I have no idea. I had no idea I could do this. And it just changed my life. And I just basically went like full throttle into development. Like I was hooked, like just completely hooked. And it was like, this is what I've been looking for. This is that thing I've been looking for, this connection, this knowing. And it turned my searching into really knowing, really knowing the spirit world was there. And having that connection, and when you go to the circles, you get to hear from your own family members and like all that all the time. So that's really nice. But yeah, I started basically going like multiple times a week for development. And then very early on, I found myself really being pulled to go to Arthur Findlay College. So we did that. And so just been kind of on this track of go forward.
When did you go to Arthur Findlay College? That's one of my bucket list dreams, and with COVID, it's not happening.
Right. I know. The first time I was in 2017. And then I've gone every year since then, except for 2020.
Oh, wow.
So, it gave me a chance because basically Michael, really recommended one of his own mentors, which was Eileen Davies, as someone to go to as a tutor at the college. And so, usually we go for some sort of course that she's on. She's awesome. She's amazing. I love her so much. And yeah. And so I've gone for, mental mediumship and for trance development and like all that. So yeah.
Wow. And I have heard that a lot, that a lot of people come into their gifts, because we all have this gift inherently, but usually after a loss of some kind. If you weren't one of those people that was a child and seeing dead people,
right.
That's very common for either a trauma to trigger it or some loss. And I don't know if that's because, you can tell me what you think of that, but if it's that desire when you lose someone to connect with them again, or if it is somehow something else, something more, I don't know, not ordained, but given to you by angels or whatever it is to
Right.
ease your suffering. I don't know, but what do you think about that?
Yeah. I do think, well, I think that most of us come from like a difficult family life.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think trauma has something to do with that. I know I was a very strong empath growing up because I needed to feel safe. And so I think that that starts to develop you essentially. I think there is something to the idea of, you know, coming in for a purpose in a sense as well, just because I also believe strongly in traditional astrology and, you can see certain aspects of certain things in people's charts and that sort of thing. So I do think it's like both, you know what I mean? I think that, and I do think everybody has some sort of mediumistic capability to some extent within them because we are souls, right? We are all connected and that is a natural thing within us.
Right.
I just think that not everybody will, go for development and do this for other people,
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. And I sort of had a similar thing where mine wasn't a loss of a loved one, but I'm a voice actor and it was the loss of my voice for 2 years
Oh,
with a vocal disorder where I plummeted into despair. And I knew there was a reason. I'm like, there has to be a bigger reason for this because this just is not fair. And I knew, and it was that despair that led me to, I have to do something to keep myself alive because I'm so, I just don't
yeah.
even feel, I just feel like everything's been ripped away from me that I worked for being an actor doesn't happen overnight. It took
Right.
20 years and then it was taken away. So because of that, I delved into this world and went to mediums for answers kind of and guidance. And they said, you're a medium. And it was, someone had said to me, if you could do anything else, what would it be? And I said, I'd be a medium, but dead people aren't talking to me because I was under the assumption that you had to wait for them to talk to you, not knowing that they are talking to you all the time. It's about
Right.
learning how to tune into that. So, when you talk about that energy that you felt when you went to the circle, which is such a cool idea, considering I've started this during COVID and only been able to do it on Zoom. I
Yeah.
love that the energy must be so palpable in that room. But can you describe when you say you feel energy? Um,
Hmm.
what does that feel like in your body when you experience it?
Sure. Okay. It feels like a very strong vibration or tingling. Um, and it feels the same as far as how I feel when I expand that out and start to work with the spirit world. When I start to become aware of a spirit person coming into my energy, essentially, it feels like this buzzing, like a buzzing, strong vibration, almost like a touching. Sometimes I can even feel like I'm being touched, and that sort of thing. So to me, that's how that feels. I know for different people, it will feel different. Sometimes it feels also like chills. Sometimes it can feel like pressure. It can feel like warmth. It just kind of varies, depending on really, I think too, the other thing is how let go are you? How open and expanded are you to become more sensitive to that? I think that that also plays a part in sort of what we experience with it. So, but I know that for me, that is pretty much everything as far as like the start of how I work or the start of how I tune in essentially is through feeling. So it's an important aspect for me personally. And I know everyone works a little bit differently.
Yeah, when you are reading somebody, one of your clients,
Mm-hmm.
what is your, I don't know that you even have a process, some don't. Sometimes once you become really comfortable in it, you can just go, we're ready to work. And it's a subtle thing, but at least in the beginning, did you ever have any kind of a way of what's your way of letting spirit know that you're ready to work?
Yeah. Well, basically, like before I work, I typically will sit for, I don't know, 5-10 minutes just to attune
Yeah.
to the energy, to just sort of become aware more of that subtle energy that's around me and it sort of expand out my own energy. And then I always just ask that the spirit world brings whoever and whatever is needed for whoever I'm working with. And I really just ask them to lead lead for me to just follow, to move out of the way, to just follow the power and follow everything that they give. And then I promise to just give it, just as they give it, I promise to just give it and trust. So that's pretty much how I work. And usually as I talk about it to my client, or I'm explaining how I work and what the expectations are of them and what I need from them, which would be yes, no, or I don't know. I just sort of go there. It's just sort of through talking, I sort of talk myself into it. So I just start to become aware of this sort of new energy, you know, this new awareness of the spirit world being there with me at that time.
Yeah, yeah. I know everyone's different. I'm sort of in the beginning stages where spirit comes to me when I'm in the kitchen. It's coming to me right this minute as we're talking. I
Mm-hmm.
feel the tingle, and it's for some reason only on one side of my body, and I
Mm-hmm.
occasionally on another. I haven't figured out why that is. Where it's, and then I kind of sometimes can stop what I'm doing and say, all right, well, someone's here, so I'll meditate for a few minutes and just see if I pick anything up. And I will, and I may not know who it's even for, if it's for me. Um, and still kind of struggle with that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, now it's time to read someone, so let's go.
Yeah.
And finding who that person is the hardest part. What would you say to anyone who's, you know, whether you're a beginner or not, but someone who has that struggle with, okay, now the pressure's on, which is why I'm
Right.
comfortable reading other mediums, and then when I have to, a friend or someone I don't know well enough that I am able to read them because I don't have enough information to be biased, I
Yeah.
start to panic because I'm like, what if they think, oh yeah, this is really not real, or something like that.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So what do you say to people?
Well, I want to say the first thing is always to remember that it's not about you. That's the
Yes.
most important thing to remember. Your ego has to get out of the way. If you want to really surrender to the spirit, you have to move out of the way. And so that is our taking our fears, taking our, you know, inadequacies, our, you know, our lack of confidence, and just putting those aside for that time and trusting, and really trusting, and just moving with it. And if it's a no, it's okay. If you get a no, that's teaching you something. That's showing you either I'm misinterpreting, I'm moving into my mind, I'm, you know, something is, there's a reason, right? Sometimes they forget too, right? Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
they forget. And so that happens. And it's learning how to not get caught up on those things, learning how to not get caught up on a no, or your own issues that you have with being afraid. You have to, it's really, mediumship is a self journey. Like, this is really a lot to do with self-development. It really, really is. And if people don't get that, like if people don't get that the importance of self-development and spiritual development along with this, they're going to struggle. Like, you have to face, you're going to face demons. You're going to literally face yourself and have to be like really honest with where you're at with yourself to really move that out of the way so you can really just be that vessel, be that communicator for the spirit person.
Yeah, and it requires an immense amount of faith, which I think we're not
Mm-hmm.
always used to doing. We're so used to
Mm-hmm.
controlling things, and it manifests
Mm-hmm.
for me as dreams that I'm performing for an audience, and I get up. It's like it's like being in a play and you don't know your lines, and
Yep.
it's trusting that the lines will come to you. And it's so
Yep.
hard in our human brains to go, what do you mean they're going to come to me? I'm on the
Yep.
spot. How is this going to manifest? But I took a class with Monica the medium, and she was actually one of the best teachers I've learned from, because as soon as she said that one thing to us, that was something like, just know that spirit's there. You're
Yeah.
asking them to be there, so they're there.
Right.
You don't have to do anything else. It was like,
That's right.
oh, so I don't have to, expel a kidney stone, as I think Susan Schuler said in one of my interviews. It's like, oh, you can just kind of go, don't be embarrassed to say it out loud, because it might feel so nothing, but when you get
Right.
that validation, it's so exciting.
Yeah.
In fact, I know that you also have a YouTube channel, which I've just discovered, and I'm so excited to binge it, where you do talk. There is a particular video where you do talk about what to do with the nose.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was so great. I sent it to another medium friend of mine. And I know that you
Thanks.
also, yeah, of course, because he was having an off day and going, I
Mm-hmm.
used to be so on it, and suddenly I'm and I said, well, this is about us. It's about our own, if
Mm-hmm.
we're losing faith in ourselves, or we're not feeling well, or energy's low.
Right.
And there's another medium that I know that teaches a class about how to be a medium. And the one thing she says is, it's, you don't need to learn how to be a medium. You need to learn how to get right with yourself and get comfortable
Yeah.
with yourself and trust yourself. And that's really it.
It's true. It's really true.
Groundbreaking.
I always like to say, like, really what we're doing as a medium is we're learning to pay attention and notice the things that are coming to us in whatever way that may be for you. So it's about learning to really put your focus on the spirit, really, really put your focus on the spirit and away from the sitter and the things that their expectations or whatever expectations are that you're putting on yourself. And you really have to focus on that spirit person. And whenever you feel nervous, like let's say you're up doing this in front of people, or you have a client, or whatever the reason is, you then just lean further into the spirit. I'm going to trust you. I'm going to surrender. I'm going to just really lean in here to the spirit, and I'm just going to set that aside. So it's a mental game. It's, you know, it's a lot to do with that, really. And like you're saying, that our energy plays a part too. You know, if I feel really tired, I might struggle. You know, I have to take care of myself. I have to be in some sort of place with myself where I can move into that properly. And yeah, they are always there. You know, if someone shows up for mediumship, they know that they're intelligent. We just have to notice that they're there. That's what we're doing.
Yeah. And as a medium who does this professionally, what do you do to take care of yourself? What is your,
Mm-hmm.
I know that we all fall off track, but as a whole, do you have
Yeah.
sort of an intentional routine, or what things do you do to take care of yourself?
Yeah. Well, I don't drink. That's really not, I only drink socially, and there's no social anything right now. So that only happens, you know, very, very, very rarely. So I don't drink. I try to stay hydrated. I try to, you know, I don't want to be tired. So for me, it's really important that I get enough sleep. So I just adjust my schedule to be however that may be for that day. If I need to, you know, sleep longer or whatever, then I do that. I don't necessarily think that, I think that as long as you are eating healthy foods and your body is healthy, then I think that is really what matters. I know there are going to be some people that will say you have to be vegan and you have to do this and blah, blah, blah. But I know several amazing mediums that smoke regularly, that drink regularly, that eat whatever the hell they want, and they're amazing. So I don't necessarily think that that is, and they use fluoride toothpaste,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So it's like, there's a lot of these misconceptions that people put in people's heads of you have to do this, and there's a big list of you know, all these things. It's like, not really. It's more like, what do you need for you? If that's what you need for you, then do that. You know what I mean? But if you don't really need that for you, then figure out what you do need.
Right. That's awesome. Do you actually teach other people in mediumship, or do you do that via your YouTube channel and your Instagram? Do you do one-on-one
Yeah.
teaching and that kind of thing, or group classes?
So I have led circles, development circles before. I don't currently right now. However, I do have plans to do something in 2021. I just don't know yet. I'm kind of waiting for that push from the spirit world. Like, you know, this sort of like, it's time now. But I do tutor in my mentor in medium Michael Mayo's circles. So he's been basically, because I'm really weird and I like to make sure I'm doing something really well first before I claim a title, right? So to call myself a teacher, yes, I teach. I love to teach. I teach on YouTube. I teach on TikTok, right? I love to teach about this, but I take a big, I think there's a big responsibility with taking someone's development in my hand. And I think that I want to be the best teacher I can be. So he's been basically training me through tutoring in his class and tutoring his students, and just learning through kind of like how he does his teaching, because he's such an amazing teacher. And we're going to be doing something together. So I just know that there's something a brewing, you know.
Yeah.
And people ask me all the time about mentoring and doing teachings and stuff like that, and I usually send them his way, because he is really good at what he does. But it's coming. I just know that it's coming. It will be blossoming, I think, in this year. So the answer is yes, no.
Yeah, well, that's great. And sometimes we just
Yeah.
have to wait for that thing. Like, this channel has been a
Yeah.
long time brewing. And before
Yeah.
COVID, the one gift of COVID times is that I put all my fears aside and said, it doesn't have to be professionally edited. It doesn't have to be, it's not a Spielberg film. Just put it up
Right.
because you like doing it. It's like, who is this
Yeah.
doing it for? Like, you know, it's for the people who get it will get it, and the people who don't won't. It may not, and it's fine. It's not for them. And I was so
Mm-hmm.
hard on myself about, but it has to be perfect. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. And then I don't even know where it's going. I just know that I'm showing up today because it's fun, and I love meeting people like you. And I get excited to talk about this stuff. And there are people like us out there that also like to sort of geek out about this kind of
Yeah.
stuff. And so you also are I understand that you do trance healing as well. And I'd love to hear
Mm-hmm.
more about, for those who don't know what it is, tell us what it
Sure.
is and
Mm-hmm.
how you came to add that into your repertoire?
Yeah. So I also felt very called to sitting for trance development early on. So when Michael started having those circles, I joined immediately. I was there for the first class. So I've been sitting for trance development now for 3-ish years, I think. But so we sort of sit in a private circle. But I do trance. Speaking and that sort of thing. And, they're working with me in different ways like that. But I also have a healing guide that works with me. So I offer trance energy healing. So basically what I'm doing in that process is really, really stepping aside. So I'm blending with the energy of my guide that works with me. I'm really letting her come forward to work through me to provide the energy that's needed for that person that's coming for that healing. Now, I just let them do their thing. I let them direct it however is needed. And sometimes when I'm sitting, I will get an awareness of different things that they're doing or different parts of the body that are in need, or, if it's emotional or whatever that may be. Sometimes that does happen while I'm sort of sitting there letting the energy flow to this person. And I have been doing this. I used to do it in person, right? But I have been doing this remotely because energy does not need to be in any one place or time. It can move wherever it needs to go. So, which has been really, really nice to have that experience, actually, to know that. And I've still been sitting in my trance circle and that sort of thing. And we can all feel the energy as we sit for each other. So it's really nice to know that that's still available to us. It's not cut off from us to still have this experience. So basically, yeah, so that's what I do. I just basically move out of the way as much as I possibly can. So when you're sitting for trance, essentially your consciousness is just sort of trying to move away, and you're just letting that spirit person, that guide, really blend with you. So it's almost like it's them that's there. It's like their thoughts, their mannerisms, their everything becomes more forward than you. So that's what you do. And I love it. I love trance because it's so special to really have that blending and get to know your guides in that way. And to have that, I felt them come forward just as I said that. So it's just so nice to have that experience. And that's really how I've gotten to know them in such an intimate way, or just to have this sort of knowing of who they are, their essence, and the things about them. I know just through that blending.
That was going to be my next question is,
Okay.
how did you come to know who your guides are? And
yeah.
I guess was there one moment where you intentionally connected to say, let me do a spirit guide meditation and see who comes up? Or has it been just sort of by trial and error of working with them and then feeling the same kind of energy there?
Right. Well, I have done that calling card meditation to have them come forward, essentially to touch your energy so that you can feel them, what that feels like, where they're coming from, how they come when it's them. So it's them. So I have had those experiences, but through sitting in the power and blending and, really through trance and really trusting when each guide comes forward, trusting and, even we've done exercises where you're speaking of as they blend, what it is you're experiencing. It's almost like mediumship in the sense, mental mediumship, and trance is a form of mental mediumship that really is still, it's just a deeper blending. It's more passive, whereas normal mental mediumship is active passive. So we're really having to be very passive and really surrendering, really, really trusting. So I just know through that process for me, that's how I have found it to be accurate and true. And also, I have had very cool experiences where one of my guides, at least, has been able to he gave me, as I was sitting in trance one night, I remember this vividly, I was in this really good held place with him, and he flashed me an image in my mind of a picture of this person. And it just stayed in my mind. And there had been little tidbits here and there from, getting a spiritual assessment from Eileen Davies, about the kind of people that are working with me, but nothing very specific, just some little things. And I got very curious. So I started researching. And then as some of the things that came forward, the way they were talked about and having this image, I found essentially who my guide was. And now then, so information started coming essentially through this. And then a third party person was able to give me, without them knowing anything about this, without them knowing anything about my guide or anything like that, was able to validate the information of who I thought this person was for me. So it's, you know, those sort of things can happen if your guide has lived here previously and it's something that's searchable. They can give you that information to just help you, if, especially if, you know, you have a maybe a skeptical mind or a curious mind, and you know there's some sort of a way for them to do that, they will. So that has been my experience, but I don't know who every guide I have is. I have a feeling of them. You know, and there's new guides that come in that work with me that I don't know. I can just sort of feel their essence and kind of if they're a man or a woman, if they feel old or not, or, you know, these different sorts of things like that.
Yeah. Is it more that you sense their energy, whether it's more feminine or masculine, from just that clairsentience sort of feeling, or is
Yeah.
it more, okay, yeah, as
Yeah.
opposed to actually seeing a vision of them, which I
Right.
know you might as well, but
Yeah. Yeah, you know, I was taught, and I think this is true, that basically the feeling is really more important, especially when it comes to like guides and things like that, because our minds love to make up pictures. We're searching in our mind, like, who is this person? And we want to make up a picture. We want to make up something. So unless you're in a very, very receptive state where it's like a, you know, where you can tell it's like a flash that comes and it's, you know, it's not like your mind making up this thing, then I really think relying more on the feeling, which is harder to make up, really helps. And so that's where that blending, learning how to blend with the spirit, really learning how to let them impress you in such a way that you just know that that's what you're feeling. You know what I mean? I feel is really important.
Yeah, I know when I've done them, I was like, well, since my guide appears to me as Oprah, I don't think that that's really who my guide is. But I'm like, I believe that she has a feminine, mothering, sort of loving
Yeah.
energy, and there might be something that she just has an Oprah energy. That's just, you know,
Yeah.
it's not a name. It's just this feeling of, I think it's because I love Oprah and I feel like safe with her, and I have that sort
Hmm.
of that feeling. And so when you do, my question about trance healing,
Hmm.
is it the same thing as Reiki? Is it, and if not, how is it different from Reiki?
Right. It is not the same exactly. And I'm not somebody that has been trained by Reiki, so I can't really speak to that specifically. But I know that the idea of Reiki is universal energy essentially
Yes.
flowing through you. And, you know, but I know there's symbols and things like that.
Right.
The, I feel like with Reiki, there's a little bit more of like, control in some way, as far as like, because you're like, I'm going to use this symbol, or I'm going to, you know what I mean, like do these things where I'm moving them and doing this, whereas what I'm doing is more like, I'm going to just be here, and if they want to move my arms, and they're going to move my arms, if they want to, you know, direct it however they're going to do it, then they're going to do that. And so it's coming, I think it's probably coming from the same source essentially, but through the intelligence and through the knowing, for whatever reason, that she's a healing guide, and, you know, has experience with this, or she's like a doctor. I have no idea. All I know is that she's the one that shows up for me with the healing, and she provides us with people, and even people that are away from me can feel that energy there with them. So when you sit for trance, essentially there should be a change in the atmosphere. There should be some sort of heaviness or some sort of something that, if you are sensitive to energy at all, you should be able to feel. So when somebody moves into a trance state properly, you should be able to feel the power. You should be able to feel this descending almost of the spirit so close there with you that it feels like this pressure or this thickness that comes to the air. And so I always tell people, look for that too. Besides that, which, you know, whenever you are experiencing anything to do with trance or channeling and that sort of thing, to really pay attention to the energy, the atmosphere. But people that I work with still feel that, even though they're not with me.
Right. So when it comes to people that you have personally lost that are in spirit,
Mhm.
I know there's, how do you, I guess we all want to communicate with the people that have we've lost. And I know that it's not like they're going to tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, remember when we did this or whatever. But
Mhm.
do you find yourself communicating with your loved ones? Um, and if so, how does that sort of work for you? Do you ever actually receive messages from your own loved ones. I think that's the hardest thing for me, is when I feel a presence and I think, is this my grandma or is this someone for somebody else?
Mm-hmm.
One time I was editing one of my videos for Clayton, and all of a sudden I felt like the tingling so strongly, and I'm like, maybe it must be for him. And I texted him, and it seemed it was not everything was completely dead on, but he's like, that's, I know who that is. He's like, that's my grandma. So if you're personally wanting to connect with your own loved ones,
Mm-hmm.
how do you, Megan, go about that? But also,
Yeah.
How do you advise that people go about that in general?
Sure. So basically, sometimes if they show up, it's just all of a sudden just sort of like a knowing. It's like, oh, they're here. Like this feeling of, I can feel my dad has a very specific energy. He, sometimes he shows up in the development circles to help other students because he's a good communicator, and I can feel him there with me as he's starting to work. So it's very much like there's a knowing that hits me when it's somebody that is for me. It feels like them. You know what I mean? It feels like I can tell the difference between that. It's like I don't know, it's like their name hits me and the knowing, it's like all that happens all at the same time. So I can tell the difference. And I think that people, as you develop, will probably get that clearer. For most people, I think that comes. But sometimes it's just like a little something that comes, a little nod or just a feeling, that you can tell it's them and not someone else. How I usually tell people to try to connect with their own loved ones is to first ask, just to ask and say, can you give me a sign? Can you come and help me feel you? Can you do something like that for me? And to just stay very, very open-minded. Don't stay narrow in it has to be like this. You know what I mean? Don't say it has to be like this, because sometimes that's not going to come like that. I know sometimes they do still come like that if you ask for something very specific. Sometimes that's possible. But the more open-minded we can be, I think the easier it is for them to really bring us signs or to bring us their presence. I also advise people to sit in the stillness, sit in the silence, sit and just be present. Try to move into your heart, feel, and then ask them to come to you, ask them to come and help you feel their energy, because, they'll often bring you love. They'll bring you this sense of support, this just feeling of comfort and all of that. And I know that can be life-changing to have that experience for yourself. And I do try to encourage people to have, to explore on their own and not just rely on a medium. Yes, having a medium there to give you specifics can be life-changing. It can be absolutely healing and amazing. But having that firsthand experience for yourself too is so important, because they're there for you, right? They're there for you, and they're always going to be connected to you through love. That will never, ever stop or change. And they will come when you ask.
Yeah. I know a friend of mine just said, I want to feel my mom more. And I said, sit in stillness. And she's like, oh, I can't do that. But that was the thing, is ask for signs and you'll start to see them. They're so subtle.
Mm-hmm.
They're so subtle, and you might miss it but things like repeating numbers or butterflies or a song or even a thought that just didn't come to you. And visitations and dreams. I said, ask if it's not working, perhaps try asking them to come in your dreams, and you'll know, because it's not
different.
It feels different.
Yeah, it feels different.
Do you have them yourself?
Yeah.
Regularly?
I don't have them regularly, but I have had them, and they're notable. The one that I had recently, not that recently, probably last year, but feels recent to me, was my mother-in-law, who was very much like my mom, and we were very close. She was like my best friend. So in this dream, we were at this place and there was other people there, but I have no recollection of who these other people were, but we were in a big circle dancing. And it was so fun. And we were laughing and just dancing around, kicking our feet. And she looked like she was in her maybe mid-30s. And I remember feeling her skin, and it was smooth. And I remember having a knowing of that she was on the other side, but it didn't make a difference. But I just remember, like, it was so nice. It was so, so nice. And when I've had ones with my dad, for some reason, he usually calls me. So I'm literally like in my dream on a phone talking to him. So I don't know why that is the case, but that's how that's happened so far.
Yeah, I think they're simple. I was telling her the same thing. I've had one, And I knew, because it was not like, I said, it's not like, oh, me and grandpa, we're at the carnival and there's monkeys juggling oranges. It's not
Right.
that. It's,
Yeah.
I'm sitting there and just all of a sudden my grandfather's in front of me and he's young. Like, I never knew him at that age. He was glowing and
Mm-hmm.
he looked 40. And I just,
Mm-hmm.
I had this sweater that I could see every little thread of. It was like this cashmere baby blue sweater. And I looked at him and said, Grandpa, you look so beautiful. See, I feel him right now. And he
Mm-hmm.
just smiled. He didn't say a word. And then I just went over and hugged him. And my grandma was there, but she was just sitting next to him.
Mm-hmm.
And I held him and I said, this feels so real. And he didn't say a word. He just kept holding me. And then I woke up, and that day I'm going about my business and I look at the calendar and it's his birthday. And I did
Mm.
not anticipate he'd been gone 11 years. It's not, I don't think about his birthday. It was just, it's his
Right.
birthday today. And I went, that was absolutely a visitation. And that's so cool.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that he came on his birthday. That's like extra validation, really.
Yeah.
But they're very vivid. Like, it's like you're seeing them not like in a hazy dream. It's very vivid. My mother-in-law also didn't talk to me. Maybe that's why my dad comes at the telephone, because I don't see him. I only hear him, but I know he's there. And that's how he talks to me. But she's never talked to me. She's just there and we're having fun. And it's really interesting how that all works. I would love to see a full body apparition. There's all these people that say, oh, there's an apparition that shows up at my bed. I'm like, really? I've never had that experience. And I'm like, you guys want to do that? I'm all for it.
I was going to ask if you ever had, because I know it's not that
No.
common, but some people
Yeah.
who are really tuned in do see things. I don't know if I'd freak out if I woke up and my grandpa was sitting at the end of my
Yeah.
bed, but I think it's something to strive for. I have been asking too. I'm like, I'm ready, because then I'll know,
Yeah.
then I'll really know. And so the other question that I have is, I think you do
Mhm.
have some events coming up that I'd love for you to share, and I will put links down below. But if please tell us about what people can see and be a part
Yeah.
of, and where
I
they
would
can
love
find you.
people to come and
Yeah.
join us. But so I have two mediumship demonstrations coming up. The first one is January the 23rd. It's a Saturday, and that's with Alan Wellman, who is another medium who's great also. And this is for a non-denominational spiritual service. You can find information. I will be posting about this, but it's through medium Jennifer Rose. She hosts a service, and it's there's music, there's healing at the end. We do mediumship. It's really lovely, and that will be at 6 p.m. Pacific time on the 23rd. And then the following weekend, I am doing a mediumship demonstration on January 30th with my mentor, Medium Michael Mayo, and I'm very excited. He's fantastic too. He's amazing. So that will be a 2-hour event, and that will be 11 a.m. Pacific time on that day. And it will both of these will be through Zoom, and it's no different than being in person. It makes no difference. And yeah, we're excited to do it. I love being a medium. I feel incredibly honored to do this work and to connect with people, on both sides, really, to be that bridge. And yeah.
Yeah, I think it was Jennifer Rose's service that I saw you, and I was like, I follow her on Instagram, which isn't a coincidence, because I attend her services and we have all the same friends and
Yeah,
things like that. But I saw Michael work as well, and he's wonderful,
he's great. Yeah.
and seems like a really sweet guy too. In fact, I have him on
Yes.
my list of, I'm going to call that guy and see if he wants
Yeah.
to do this show, because he's
Yeah.
really seems like a lovely person as well. And
Mhm.
I know. Do you think that in the future, do you have? I know that you said you've got some stuff brewing, but do you have any? Do you have any? I don't want to say designs on, if that's the right phrase, on writing a book, or doing
Yeah.
any kind of show, or radio?
Yeah.
Do you want to be a TV person, or a personality, or anything of that? Do you have anything like that you
I
are
have no
working
idea. I would love to do like a book at some point and, talk about my experiences, or, I don't know. I
on? Yeah,
I have no idea. I'm trying to let the spirit world direct me. I'm really trying to allow them to just direct me. And my thing is, I think it's so important to always just try to remain humble, and just to try to slap that ego back and just really try to just trust the whole process of whatever's out there for you. And so I'm just trying to do that. But what I really love to do is to bring mediumship to the normal people. I love to teach about it to them so they understand it better. I love to try to help people connect with their own loved ones, help them with, developing their own intuition. And I love to sort of knock out some of the misconceptions of mediumship or the superstitions, like about using a Ouija board, or like all these different things that are out there, or that, that there's this evil, things that are coming. I feel very like I want to, I just feel like I want to hold a torch up for the spirit world in some way to just help people not be afraid. That's really, really my thing, is I just want them not to be afraid of the spirit world or of connecting to their loved ones. Cause it's just so sad to me that that's how a majority of the people in this world live. They don't know that they're a spirit. They only believe in the physical that they see. They don't know that life continues on. So they live in fear.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, I want to help people live their life to know, like, I really don't have anything to be afraid of besides not living.
Yeah.
That's really the only thing I need to be afraid of. So that's really what I want to do. So however the spirit world wants to use me to do that, I will allow that.
That's beautiful. I also, just ever since I've been doing more of this work, I really have felt such a sense of peace. And of course, we aren't going to ever push our beliefs on anybody, but you do wish that everyone had that faith, because it does make things so much easier getting through life. Because every hard thing that happens now, I'm able to say, okay, this sucks, but I know that this is for my greater good, whether it's right now or in the spirit world or whatever it is. I know that this is for my evolution. In fact, everything that's been going on in the world right now, I don't have fear about. And it's easy for me to say, not having had any major tragedies from personally this year, that I think that it's really easy to see, wow, this is like a chess game. It's all so well orchestrated that it's actually working perfectly, even though it seems like, oh my God, what is this? No, there's this is happening, and it's not happening to hurt us.
Right.
It's just it's just getting us to a place of deconstructing everything, having to face our demons, having to improve things, build it, so better things can come together. So I love what you said about just really wanting to let people know that it's so easy to get wrapped up in fear and anxiety.
It is.
Yeah.
Very much.
As a lifelong anxiety sufferer,
Yeah.
I've had more peace now. Just because now I can look at it as, all right, well, my bank account's empty. Is that really what's life is about? I mean, no, it's going to be fine. I'm going to be provided for. So I love that. And I think it's really, the work that you do is not just of service to others, but of service to the spirit world as well. So, and I am telling everyone right now that you are really, really talented. And it doesn't just take having the ability to connect. It takes having that warmth and that personality and ability to communicate to your sitter what you're seeing and feeling, and be able to be empathetic, because they might be crying or they might be having a moment, and you are one of those people you're sensitive to it. You're able to do your work and stay, like, keep doing the work, but also be very kind. And so I think you're great at what you do, and I can't wait to see what else you do. And I'm planning to attend. Both of your events are on my calendar,
Awesome.
So
thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, of course. I would highly recommend you to anyone who asks. So thank you so much for your time and energy. And I look forward to, again, seeing more of what you do, and also sitting in on more of your events.
Well, thank you, Shannon. I really appreciate you inviting me on and talking to me. It was really enjoyable. I think you're really great. I really do. And I'm excited to see where you go too.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Thank you.